Can Elon Musk's SpaceX Starship actually get to Mars? I think it's time to do some math. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning and focus combination. So good, that bergamot. The zing. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee, hanging out, talking space, SpaceX, Starlink, Linux, AI, all kinds of great tech on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about SpaceX and Starship. This has been a question that I've been getting for months and months and months, and I'm finally putting this together for you. What is going on with this whole idea of getting to Mars? And is it possible? And what are those trials and tribulations that need to be gone through to be able to actually get there? A lot of people say, no, it's not possible. Some people say, yeah, it's possible. We hear Elon very positively saying it is possible and we're definitely going to do it. I want to break down some of the scenarios for you. Hopefully you find it interesting. We're going to be geeking out a little bit. And for me, I love that. We're going to do a little bit of math. I might not show you some of the math because you might get too bored with it, but we're going to do some math today, do some calculations. If any of my math is wrong, by all means. I'm not a rocket scientist. I just learn as we go. And if my math is off on something, just let me know. All right. We're here to learn together. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about SpaceX Starship and them actually putting a Starship into low Earth orbit, fueling it up, and then launching it to Mars. Is this possible? And what has to happen? What stars literally have to align for this to actually happen? We're talking about manned or unmanned. It doesn't really matter because no matter how you look at it, this is going to be a one-way trip for quite some time. And I'll tell you why once again in this video. So let me start out by saying, if you enjoy the content, even a little bit, all right, please throw the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're not, if you are, thank you. I appreciate that. Click the notification button here so when I go live, when a new video comes out, you'll be notified of it immediately. And if you want to say thank you for all of my hard work on the channel, there's a little thank you button down here. Thank you, YouTube, for giving us the button. Click on that, give $1 or $2 if you like. If not, it's perfectly fine. The video is still free. Consider becoming a member of the channel. That would be even better. Also, I've put together over 560 videos, I think it is now, for you. 560 SpaceX Starlink videos, helpful how-tos, tips, tricks, what to do, what not to do, what to buy, what not to buy. Of course, the why behind all of it, because this channel has always been about the what, the why. I'll put a link right here. Don't click on it yet. Finish watching the video. But when you're done watching the video, go back here, click there, and take a look. There's a lot of great information there. So let me start out by saying that the Starship holds about 1,200 tons of propellant. It comes to about 900 tons of liquid oxygen or LOX and the rest methane. So you get an idea. We have 1,200 tons to play with. The dry weight is about 100 tons, right around there, and the payload probably about 100 tons too is what they're trying to take up there, give or take, 150. So do you get an idea? We have 1,200 tons of propellant and the vehicle about 100 tons. We're getting to close to about 13 to 1,350 metric tons of weight in totality. So let's start out with problem number one. So first off, we need to top off that Starship up to 1,200 tons. How do we do that? We need to bring fuel up into LEO. So we could do it one of two ways. Number one, we could put like a fueling tanker up there that we bring Starships up to it and then unload until we fill the tanker and then use that tanker to fill the Starship that will be heading to Mars. Or we can move the Starship that's going to be going to Mars and then fill it with tankers that come up to it or other Starships. Now, there's a problem when it comes to speed of doing this. How many tankers does it take or how many Starships does it take to fill the single Starship or top it off with 1,200 tons? Well, moving about 100 to 150 tons of fuel each time will take 150 divided by 1,200, 8, right? So you're looking at about 8 Starships to go up to fill one Starship. That's a problem, right? That's a lot. That's not a little bit. Also, you have to remember that if this fuel up there in space is not cryoed, it's not brought down to a certain temperature and it's just left alone, it's going to bleed off. it's going to boil off at a rate of about 1 to 2% per month. So in the course of, let's say, 10 months, it's boiled off now about 10 to 20% of the fuel. Keep that in mind. That is very important going to Mars also, and I'll get into that in just a minute. Now, once we get it topped off, okay, the next problem is we're going to launch, and we have a certain window to do so. We can only launch from Earth to Mars every 780 days. And there's a launch window of about 30 to 60 days that we can launch. Prime time would be right around 56 days, let's call it, right? I'm going to use 56 going forward because that's like a really nice time. We want to use the home and transfer means of getting there. And the reason being is we're going to expend the least amount of fuel. It will take about 8.5 to 9 months to get there. So if you became pregnant the day that you left, by the time you got to Mars, you'd be having a baby. Just to give you an idea, all right? So once again, 780 days is the cycle. Just over 2 years it takes for us to be ready to launch again. So there is a massive time in between. The next time that we can launch to Mars will be in 2026. Will we be ready? Well, you decide by the end of this video. So that 56-day window, we end up launching it and we use the home and transfer arc. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you what that arc looks like because this is very important. And I'm going to get into a TMI or the transfer Mars injection burn and all the rest of the stuff. But before I do, let's jump right in here and I'll draw you a picture so you can kind of see it. Sometimes seeing it is better than just hearing it because you're trying to visualize it, right? Let's actually look at it. So here we go. What do we got here? All right, so I printed this out for you guys, right? That's a nice, easy little diagram here. You can see what's going on. Let me grab some of these. Let's say we'll use red for Mars and maybe blue for our beautiful blue marble planet. And maybe we got some colors and a black here. All right, so let's see what we got going on here. Number one, we have the sun dead center. Matter of fact, let's highlight that. All right, that's the sun right here, dead center. Now, we have Earth in this really tight orbit right here. Takes 365 days to get around the sun. Now, this outer orbit is Mars. Now, Mars takes about 687 days to get around the sun. So Mars is traveling a little bit slower. How much slower? Well, Earth is traveling at 30, let's call it kilometers per second. This is Earth. And Mars is traveling at 24 kilometers per second, just so you get an idea of speeds and what's going on here, okay? We see here perihelion and aphelion. Now, if you guys don't know it, let me go and switch back. Peri in Latin or in Greek means closer, whereas ap, or it's actually apo in Greek, means further. And that's, I digress here a little bit, but if you have a child or a grandchild that's in school, I suggest to you have them study for a month or two, either Latin or Greek, okay? Just terminology. Because everything scientific, medical, even law, much of it has to do with Greek or Latin terminology. So the folks that really get an understanding of Greek or Latin usually do much better on SATs, ACTs, and all of these type of tests, even IQ tests, because it's just simple at this point. You just know it, you look at it, you just know what's going on. Anyways, let's get back to this. So we're back. Ap, once again, the farthest distance from the sun, and peri, which would be the closest from the sun. Helion, obviously meaning sun. So this is going to be the trajectory. You see this transfer orbit? This is this Holman transfer orbit. We're going to do this 180-degree burn to get to Mars right here. So let's start out by putting Earth and Mars on here. So if we put our blue planet right here, okay, we need to wait to actually launch until Mars is 44 degrees ahead of us. Now this is very important. 44 degrees ahead of us. Why is that? Well, because it's further out, we're taking a tighter ellipse. This is just simply it. It has to do with a lot of math, and we're not going to get into the math today. So if we cut this in half, we know this is 90 degrees. And if we cut this 90 degrees in half again, this is 45 degrees. So just before 45 degrees is where Mars is going to be, right here. Okay, this is where it's going to start out. Now, we're going to take our ship and launch it from Earth, and we're going to follow this line right here. Okay, all the way around here. And this in totality is 180 degrees, whereas Mars, going in this direction here, will be moving a total of 100 and let's say 37 degrees, right around there, right? Just like that, okay? 137 degrees, 180 degrees. That's how it works out. That's how the math works out. And then we both meet up right here at this aphelion point. So this will be our ship right here, and then Mars would be right here. And there we go. So we're going to be moving this ship, once again, down this line here until we get to meet Mars on this side. Once again, aphelion. Now, this whole time, the time that it takes to get from here over to here is a total of 259 days. Okay, that's how long it takes. It's about, let's call it 8.5 to 9 months to get from here over to there and meet up with Mars. Now, hopefully this gives you an idea of how this is working, all right? Once again, we are going to be taking this tighter ellipse while Mars is on that further ellipse, and we're going to meet basically at 180 degrees. Mars is going to move that 137 degrees. We're going to move 180. Now, we need to do this TMI initial burn. A TMI stands for the Trans-Mars Injection Burn. TMI, Trans-Mars Injection. That is the burn that we need to get to Mars after that 259 days. So we pull in, technically we're actually pulling in a little bit before Mars, and kind of Mars is like pulling in from behind. That's kind of how it works. Anyways, that is something that we need to do, and the amount of power that it takes, let's say, or the delta V. Now let me switch this back. Delta V is written with this, like a triangle and then V. This is considered delta V. Now, delta V really isn't power. It's not propulsion, so to speak. What delta V is, it is the change in velocity. So what that means is if you are at a stationary, if you're at 0 and you need to get to a certain specific velocity to get to Mars, that velocity is approximately 3.7 to 4.1, 4.2 kilometers per second. That is the velocity that we need to be at to get to Mars. So let's just even it out and say 4 kilometers per second. So as soon as we're ready to launch, we're going to turn on those 3 Raptor engines, all right, and let them burn full throttle for approximately 8 minutes. A little bit more, 8 minutes, 9 seconds, somewhere around there, until we get to that 4.0 kilometers per second, magic number. Now, this is that initial push. That is the push that's going to get us to Mars. What does that mean? Well, once we actually turn off the lights on those Raptor engines, it's pretty much game over. At that point, we have expended about 888 tons of fuel. We have about 312 tons left, and that is it, all right? 8-minute burn, 8 minutes, some odd second burn. That is all. And then for the next 8.5, 9 months, we are literally coasting to Mars. That's how it works. Now, during this coast phase, there is slight little modifications if we need to make them for positioning, just literally on and offs of the engines, just to kind of dial things in so it's exact. Now, we've done this before with multiple satellites. Some failed, but they all made it to Mars. Some ended up smashing into Mars. Some ended up coming in too low. There's been issues, but we still get there because we know how to use the home and transfer. We know the speed, we know the delta V, we know exactly what we need to do. Now, some people are going to say, well, we have 6 Raptor engines. Why, Joe, do you want to only light 3? If we light all 6, won't it only have to burn for half the time? The answer is yes, you could use all 6, and instead of burning them for 8 minutes, it would only be 4 minutes to get to that same speed. But, this is the big but, those vacuum engines are very specific to being lit in a vacuum. They are more efficient. So instead of using, let's say, 888 tons of fuel to get to that magic number, delta of 4.0 kilometers per second, you're going to use in excess of 900, maybe 912, 920 tons of fuel. So you're wasting a lot of fuel and you're lighting up all 6. There's more to go wrong. There's more vibration. There's more everything. It's better to only use those 3. So hopefully that answered some of your questions out there, because I know a lot of you guys were like, why don't you just use all 6? They're there. Why don't you just use them? You don't have to use as much fuel. And the answer is no. You actually use more fuel if you use all 6 of them instead of just using the vacuum engines, the 3. Anyways, so here's the next problem. Scenario. We end up firing off those 3 Raptor engines and only 2 light. Okay? And we're only able to get the craft up to, let's say, 2.9 kilometers per second. And we don't hit that magic number of 4.0. What happens? Well, the ship is lost. The crew is lost. Why is that, Joe? Well, I'm glad you asked. Once you hit that 2.9, you weren't able to hit the 4.0, you're not going to be able to transition or transfer to Mars. You won't get there. Period. When you get to that location, Mars is already long gone, and I'll get into that in just a second because it's another question I keep getting, and I'm going to answer it in just a second. Now, why is this? Once you expend that 888 tons of fuel, well, guess what? You don't have another 888 to turn around and come back. You're basically now lost. That craft will be going on indefinitely, in perpetuity, forever. It will eventually stick into a nice heliocentric orbit, and it will just sit there and just revolve around the sun, once again, indefinitely. If there's any crew on board, they will slowly perish because of life supports either leaving or radiation poisoning or a bunch of other problems that can possibly happen. Because what we need to understand is within the first 8 minutes, we're going to know if that crew or that ship is going to make it to Mars or not. If they don't get to that magic number, they will not get there. That is it. And there's no return. There's no way to just stop and just turn around and get back. There's not enough fuel to do it. It has been expended. Now, can we send a rescue mission or who knows what? Anything is possible, but the chances are no. Those people or cargo or whatever's on board will be lost forever. Once again, we will know the answer within the first 8 minutes. So bear that in mind. Now, this underscores the importance of those Raptor engines and the reliability thereof. You cannot have a problem with them. There's no second chance. All 3 need to light, and they need to light for a solid 8 point some minutes. They can't go out. They can't flutter. They can't stutter. They can't do anything. They have to light and produce that 4.0 kilometers per second, or the mission is lost at the very beginning. So, the transit time, once again, is the length of time it takes a woman to give birth. It is 8.5 to 9 months. And the question that I get that kind of gets into the possibility of maybe not getting up to speed. What happens if we didn't get up to speed? We're close, but we get to the rendezvous point. Once again, this rendezvous point is right here at this aphelion location. This rendezvous point here, if we get there and we are 1 week short, right? 1 week. That is it. Not a long time. We're 1 week late. What happens? Well, what happens is Mars keeps moving, and it's moving at approximately 3.6, I believe it is, degrees. per week. So you're looking at, let's call it 4. Let's make it nice and even, right? 4 degrees per week it's moving. So what does that translate into? How far away? When we get to that location and we're a week late, if we look around, can we see Mars? Is it like anywhere out there? No, it's not. It is 14.6 million kilometers away. Let me repeat that. We're a week late. Mars is over 14 million kilometers away. 14 million. You're not seeing it. It's gone. Now, some people will say, well, we missed it. All right, we missed the bus. Now what do we do? Okay, can we just sit there stationary and wait for Mars to come back around? How long? You remember? What is the number? 687 days is how long it takes, right, to revolve around the sun. So 687 days later, will Mars show up? The answer is yes. It will show up. Now, there is precession that happens. There's a little wobble. There's a little expansion. There is a little, it's going to be off by a little bit, but not by much. Okay, not by much. It will show back up. But you're now almost 2 years down the road, 1.88 years down the road. Remember what I was telling you about? If the fuel isn't cryoed, right? If it's not at a certain temperature, what happens? It boils off at a rate of about 1 to 2% per month. Your fuel now is just about gone, all right? You have lost a totality of probably 40, close to 50% of your fuel has just boiled off, okay? You just don't have it anymore. It's just gone from you sitting there. Also, the amount of gamma, the amount of radiation, the amount of rays that you are getting, you will end up with cancer or some other ailment, bone deterioration, bone loss, all kinds of problems in this microgravity, as well as just the radiation alone that's hitting the craft over the course of 2 years. You can't do it, all right? It's not feasible to do it. And even if Mars does show up and you're in a close position at that point, because remember, while you're waiting there, you kind of have to get things settled and you need to stay put. There is some finagling to be able to actually quote unquote sit there, because there's no such thing as stationary at that point. But if you did find Mars to pull up after 687 days, would you have enough fuel to be able to insert into the Martian orbit? And chances are the answer is no. All right. So once again, if you're a week off, chances are your mission is done and you are done too. That's just simply the way it is. Sad facts, but this is the way it is. Now, how exactly are we going to be able to get humans back home? We see that this is a one-way trip, all right? We have 1,200 tons of fuel to play with. We're using 888 tons of fuel to get there on that primary burn, that TMI that I'm telling you about before, right? You only have 312 left. There's no way to come back home. So the only way to technically come back home is if you have refueling depots either on Mars or in the Martian orbit. Or here we would call it LEO. Over there would be what? LMO. LEMO? I don't know. Low Mars orbit instead of LEO, low Earth orbit. Anyways, you would need to have tankers there to be able to refuel once again to be able to get back. Or what you would need is what's called ISRUs. Now, an ISRU basically stands for in situ resource utilization. In situ, if you, once again, back into Latin, in the place. So, for example, if this was made in Detroit, Michigan, the in situ of this would be Detroit, Michigan. This is the place of its origin or birth or where it's coming from. So in situ resource utilization, or ISRU, would basically mean that we are gathering resources from the planet. We are using or utilizing the resources on the planet. For what? It's a good question. We are using it to create liquid oxygen and methane, all right? Very important. That's what we need to be able to get back. Liquid oxygen and methane. You would either have one of these depots, right? Or you would have to bring your own fuel. And as we know, we can't bring our own fuel because we're bringing payloads of cargo. If we bring our own fuel to come back, well, the 150 tons of cargo that we want to bring there, or 100 tons of cargo, would end up having to be fuel, and that still wouldn't be enough to be able to get us back. So technically, there's no real way to be able to have enough fuel on a current Starship to be able to get us there and back. You would need like 1,800 or something. You'd need a lot more. Okay, it would have to be a bigger ship. It would have to hold a lot more fuel. So no matter what, we have to have depots there, gas stations on orbit, or we have to have one of these refueling sites, or actually probably many of them, on the planet, converting their atmosphere, all right? We would need water too, remember, we would need water, using the H2O, breaking that down into the 2 oxygen molecules and the 1 hydrogen, right? That's very, very important. We need hydrogen, right? We need oxygen. So water is really important. Or once again, we'd have to bring our own hydrogen with us. That takes up space, takes up cargo, takes up poundage, tonnage. We don't want to do that, okay? So you need one of these ISRUs, or multiple, on the planet that is sitting there constantly creating oxygen and methane to be able to use for our ships to get back and forth. Very, very, very important. That's the only way to do it. Because remember, these are one-way missions. When you hear about them being spoken about, it just sounds like we're just going to go off to Mars and then we're going to come back and we're going to go off again and come back. It's not how it works. There's no way to do it. There's not enough fuel to do it. That is it. Very simple. And that is using this Hohmann transfer orbit, which is that orbit. Let me bring that up. Which is that orbit that takes us there, expending the least amount of fuel, all right? It is further out, but it uses a lot less fuel to get us to come together. That meeting point right here. So it doesn't make too much of a difference. Even using this Hohmann transfer orbit, we still do not have enough fuel to be able to get home. It is a one-way mission. When you look at this whole thing, it looks very much so like a Fibonacci sequence, right? Or the golden ratio, 1.618. Anyways, doesn't it? Very similar, like a conch shell or something. But it's not. And the reason being, let me bring this up again, because this right here is very specific to Mars. If we were trying to get to another, let's say we're getting to Venus, it's going to be a different transfer arc. It's going to be different. It's not going to be perfect. Nothing is perfect. Matter of fact, there is no perfect circle in our universe anywhere. There's no such thing as a perfect circle. It does not exist. Every single orbit is slightly elliptical, period. End of story, right? So when we look at the pitfalls, number one, first of all, we need to top off the Starship, and we need to do it in low Earth orbit. And to do so, it's going to take 8 or more other starships to either fill up a tanker or to pull up and refill and refill and refill and refill 8 times. And that's with no loss, no bleed off. And that's if we don't have any boil off either. Once again, 1 to 2% per month, right? There's going to be some. So chances are it'll probably take, let's say, 9 ships to be able to fill it to 100% capacity. The one ship that's going to end up going to Mars. 9. That's a lot. Then the next thing, of course, we have to worry about is boil off. Now, some people will say, well, why don't they put some type of cryogenic machinery on board? A cooler, a chiller. And you could do it. It's possible. But once again, more mass, more things to carry. There's a trade-off. Do you chill the fuel or do you allow it to boil off at that 1 to 2% per month? And that's something for SpaceX to find out and to figure out what is a better way to do it. And will those chillers actually work? Or will they break down after a certain amount of time? And then it's just extra mass that's useless being there, because that boil off is a thing. That's just simply the way it is. There's no two ways about it. The other thing is radiation and health, guys. Radiation and health. Once we do have a manned mission that sits there and it's being bombarded with gamma and solar radiation continuously for 9 months during that flight getting there, that trip, well, all the passengers are going to be hit with a lot of radiation. Now, there's ways to kind of deflect it, and there's a lot of things that they can do to prevent certain radiation issues, but it is a major factor. And along with microgravity and radiation, you could definitely experience bone loss and a lot of other problems, cancer, and a lot of issues. Now, the other thing is the reliability of those Raptor engines. Like I said from the beginning, if those Raptor engines are not 100% reliable, redundant, and are able to produce that delta V of 4.0, let's just call it to round off, kilometers per second, they're not getting there anyways. It's endgame. The minute, literally 8 minutes in, they know if the mission has failed or if it's going to be a possible success. Because remember, once we get to meeting with Mars, now we have to actually get into orbit with it and then finally land. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into it after that. So, understanding that we have a launch window of 780 days, that makes it very, very mission critical to have everything in place before that time. And the window of opportunity, like I said, is 30 to 60 days. Let's call it 56 days. That is it. So you would have to launch, let's say if you want to launch 10 Starships during that window, you would have to launch all 10 right around that week's time, right? Or month's time. It's 30 to 60 days, but ideally you want to stay right around that 56-day timeline, right around there. And each one that launches earlier or the ones that launch later are going to have to change slightly the delta V, right? How much of that change in propulsion from zero or stasis to that speed of 4.0, how much delta V is required, okay? Once again, how much propulsion, how much fuel is going to be expended to get to that, and the timing of that. The other thing that we have to take into consideration is the atmosphere, air braking, right? We've been seeing that Starship is having problems with its heat tiles, right? Where we're seeing some burn through on the flaps. We cannot have anything like that on Mars, okay? It needs to be able to belly flop, come in for a landing, land on feet, because it's not going to be landing on a Mechazilla, because Mechazilla is not going to be there, and land perfectly in a specific location that they know is flat. So there's going to be LiDAR going on, all kinds of radar to find out exactly where that thing needs to be put down. That is a feat in itself. So there is so many things that have to go right. Miracles. There is so many miracles that have to happen for us to actually get to Mars. And hopefully you see it with this explanation that I've given you here. Now there's a lot more to it. We can get into math, we can get into different speeds and different methodologies of getting to Mars. You don't have to use this specific Holman transfer to get there. You could actually expend a lot more fuel, right, with a higher delta V, and get there quicker, maybe 3 to 4 months. You could do that, absolutely. But we don't have the capacity, because as of now, we're literally using over 75% of our fuel just to simply get there. And that's with that 1,200 tons of propellant that we have currently on board. This is why they keep wanting to make these ships bigger and bigger and bigger. We saw from Block 1 to Block 2, they went all the way up to a 25% increase in propellant capacity. Do you think that was just for nothing, just because they want to hold more fuel? No, they need more fuel to get to Mars. They actually need probably double the amount of fuel to be safe, so they can actually get a crewed mission home if something goes sideways. Because as of right now, it's a one-way mission. And like I said before, in the first 8 minutes, you're going to know if that mission is going to have a possibility of success or will be a 100% failure. 8 minutes, guys. That is it. You either reach the delta V or you don't. And those Raptor engines are not only going to have to light, they're going to have to run for over 8 minutes at full throttle to be able to produce that amount of thrust or that speed, 4 kilometers per second. It's actually 3.7 to about 4.3, somewhere around there. I just call it 4 to round it off. Anyways, so I had a lot of fun putting this together. I hope you enjoy it. If I got something wrong with anything, some of these numbers, I'll kind of like make it a little bit easier for you to understand instead of getting into the nuances. But either way, I hope you found this interesting. If you have, throw the video a thumbs up. Let me know down below, what do you think about all this? Do you think, knowing what you know today, is it possible for Elon Musk to get a Starship to Mars next year? You tell me. I'm not even going to answer the question. I think you know my answer to it. Do you think it's possible? Is it possible, knowing everything that you know now? Remember, we calculated 9 Starships to refill a single Starship to launch, to be able to do that TMI burn, that trans-Mars injection burn. You think it's possible? And what do you think about humans getting to Mars in the near future? How long do you think it'll take? What would be the criteria to be able to make this a possibility? They're talking about 2030. Do you think that that is possible? Down below, I would love to hear from you. What do you think? And like I said, if you're shy, just put an emoji down there so I know you got to the end of the video. I appreciate that. That would be awesome. Anyways, guys, if you haven't went over to my shop, check it out. Go to JCristina.com/shop. Once again, JCristina.com/shop. If there's something there that you like, some of my merch, please pick it up. Help support me and my family. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay connected, hopefully through SpaceX Starlink, and we'll see you in the next one. Love you guys.